Hi, welcome to valuationpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I provide online divorce, mediation, and valuation services in St. Louis, Missouri. Today, we will discuss the Unimpeachable Rebuttal with Zachary Meyers, a CVA and CPA in Winfield, West Virginia. He is a testifying expert and has been qualified as an expert in the forensic accounting, taxation, business valuation, and pension valuation fields, specifically in civil, marital, and criminal litigation. Part of this article that you actually wrote an entire article about in a series, and people can look at it on Quick Read Buzz and things like that with the NACVA. But when we're experts and we're going in to do these reports, what are some of the things that can start to help us make a rebuttal report unimpeachable? And what does that mean really in the context of what we do? Why is it even important?
Sure. Well, unimpeachable neutrality is the most important virtue or characteristic that an expert can show. That's what you're there for. You're hired by counsel from time to time, but at the same time, you have to be unbiased. You have to have integrity. You have to be neutral. You have to give consideration to multiple things and not just sort of proffer the speculative minutia. When you're dealing with building a report, that you're talking about building assumptions. So whether someone is rebutting your report or you're the first expert to issue a report, you always need to focus on very solid, neutral assumptions that you can support based on facts and evidence that are specific to this particular case and sometimes peer data. So if you're writing a report yourself, focusing on government statistics, peer data, let the numbers tell the story for the most part, as far as don't try to create a work of fiction. That's the best thing you can do, and you can probably survive any rebuttal if you do that. But if you're rebutting someone else's work, you want to be as professional as possible in that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're not just saying that he's an idiot or she's an idiot or he doesn't know what they're talking about. And that's very important. And I don't know, and you probably dealt with this too. Sometimes whether it's if it's a female, I've seen people trash people to try to make the female experts not look as smart, or
Mm-hmm.
somebody looks different or is young. You're going to see a lot of this, and it's important that you can handle yourself accordingly and not just get mad and throw a fit and make the person who is rebutting your work basically look like they know what they're talking about, because you're sitting here upset and doing firing it right back at them. Oftentimes those experts, they may not even intend to put out an opinion. They may just be writing this and they're never intended to go up on the stand. They're just trying to write this to trash your work or to make you say something or get a soundbite that is not going to help your situation. So whenever you get these rebuttals, you'll see there's a couple common characteristics I talk about. You have the all problems, no solution rebuttal, where they basically pick apart each and every one of your assumptions, literally, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's often more than one way to calculate something. And so when someone says that, oh, this is wrong, that is wrong, and you're using generally accepted methodologies, data, peer data that's generally used by, the rest of your field, and they still trash it, that can be a problem and hard to deal with. And so you have to call the behavior out for exactly what it is, and don't necessarily get emotional. And it's hard not to do it because, sometimes you read a report that's written about you to rebut your work and you're like, what the heck? This guy's an idiot. Can't do that. You have to stay neutral. Another example that I talk about is the glaring error in professional judgment, which kind of gets upon that, what I was just saying, where there's more than one way to calculate something most of the time. Mm-hmm. So when someone says he's made an egregious error or she's made a huge erroneous mistake that's material to the damages or the value, something like that, you'll see this shock value sort of stuff, and you have to deal with that as professionally as you can. And one of the best ways to do it is just to speak directly to what they're doing. It's just like dealing with a psychopath. You just speak directly to what exactly they are doing and call it out, as opposed to getting into a cat fight. And you'll see a couple other types. I talk about the complicated cornucopia, which is they just try to confuse things by using lengthy, highly educated sounding words to try to make themselves sound better and make you look like you don't know what you're talking about, even though you did exactly what you were supposed to do by taking something complicated and simplifying it. They try to do the opposite. They try to take something that's complicated and complicate it further, and then make it look like you don't know what you're talking about. You have to deal with that. Don't get into a rebuttal battle if that happens, where you try to out syllable the other expert and use bigger words and more technical stuff. But basically, you'll see experts either playing upon your fears or your values. They'll either try to downplay the value that this expert report brings to the table, and that kind of goes into the fear that a judge or a reader of a report is going to have. They're going to question, well, what if this guy doesn't know what he's talking about? What if Melissa Gragg doesn't know what she's talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to really sort of re-emphasize your foundational key points. It starts off with a good report first and foremost, but even if you're rebutting someone else's work, you can do it in a professional way, and that's not easy to do, but it's a must, especially nowadays, because everything's transparent. Your stuff's being recorded, whether on Zoom or something else. If you act a fool, they will see you on camera. It will be
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because we just did like an advanced mediation training, and there was one whole section which I've really loved this. I worked for a few other valuation people that were very grammatically correct and had grammar books like on their desktop at any time. So I like this, but part of what they talked about is there are inflammatory words, right? So I can say that Zach is a nice guy, or I can say Zach is a narcissist, and and even to the point of like, oh, the revenues dramatically increased, or did the revenues increase over time? Like those two could be the same language for the same events, but one of them seems like it dramatically happened and the other is just like, oh, it just sort of increased. And so I think that we get into some of that even flagrant language because attorneys religiously use flagrant language in their filings. I think that experts really have to tend to bring it back and say, you know what, I'm not going to do that flagrant language. I'm going to just state it as it is, right? And that's a piece of it. I think it's also strategy. If you're going to be an expert witness, it's like anything. You really need to build a wall around yourself and your professional work. And you have to say that people are going to come for you in a million different ways. But the reality is, it doesn't have to do with you as a person. And it's very hard to do that. And you have to practice over time because they'll still kind of get you. We were just talking before this started, and an attorney accused me of lying on the stand. And I was just like, you know what? You're pressing some buttons right now because I didn't lie and I did meet with the client and da 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 da. And I said, what proof do you need? There's a way to say, you're being offensive. I mean, I was like, you're being offensive at this point. Would you like to see my calendar so that I could prove that I had that meeting? And oh, no, 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 no. Or I could be like, you are so offensive. I can't believe it. And as an expert, you literally have to tone everything down, which means your written word as well.